You wake up in the morning and look in the mirror. For just a moment, the real you surfaces. Not the version you perform throughout the day, not the face you show to others, the real you, and that you may have been shaped by other people's reactions. If you shake when someone criticizes you, if something tightens inside when someone belittles you, if your mood shifts when someone withholds their approval, maybe you are not the one running your own life. Today we are going to shatter that mirror, and we are going to start choosing who we are. The vast majority of people know themselves least of all. This sounds strange, but think about it. Who could possibly be closer to you than yourself? How many times a day do you genuinely ask yourself what you feel? How many times do you do something new and actually know why? Really think about it, not because that's how it's done, but because I am choosing this. How many times do you say yes to someone and notice where that yes is coming from? For most people, the answer is very, very rarely. We learn about ourselves not by living, but through the reactions others give us. When someone laughs, we say, "I was funny." When someone gets angry, we say, "I made a mistake." When someone withholds approval, something inside us breaks. The outside world becomes a mirror, and we try to understand who we are by looking into that mirror. The problem is, that mirror never intends to reflect the truth, because everyone looks at you through their own lens, through their own needs, their own fears, their own expectations, and you live your life believing the distorted reflection is real. For years. Now, create a scene in your mind. You are in a meeting or at a dinner table, or simply in the middle of an everyday conversation. Someone says something, maybe not directly to you, but it feels like it is aimed at you. That subtle tone, that slight condescension, that sharpness dressed up as a joke. And what do? Think about the very first thing that passes through you. Really think. For most people, that feeling is this: how do I respond? What do I say? Are they right? Are they wrong? Should I say something now or later? Those questions arrive within seconds, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. And those questions reveal one thing. That external moment has planted itself at the center of your inner balance. A single sentence someone said has seized your entire attention within seconds. When did this begin? Picture a 5-year-old child. They accidentally knock something off a shelf and it breaks. The teacher looks over, or the mother, or the father, and what does that child do? They explain. "I didn't do it. It fell. They started it." Because in that moment they learned, if you don't explain, you get punished. If you don't defend yourself, you are considered guilty. If you stay silent, you are seen as having admitted it. That learned response sank very deep, so deep that it became a reflex. It now operates without thinking. When someone accuses you, whether justly or not, that old mechanism kicks in. Open your mouth, explain, correct, prove. And the strange thing is, that machine actually feels like it's working. If I explain, they'll understand, you tell yourself. If I clarify, they'll learn, you say. And this belief sits very firmly inside you. Because sometimes it genuinely works. Someone understands. Someone says, "You're right." But most of the time they don't understand. Most of the time the attack wasn't made to find the truth anyway. The attack was made to see your reaction. And every time you explain, every time you defend yourself, you are telling them, "This works. Keep going." Now, go back to that mirror. To the person looking into the morning mirror, that man or that woman, I want to ask you this. How many people's expectations did you wake up with today? Without realizing it? Unconsciously? but the people you'll encounter that day are already in your head. You are calculating how one person will react, what another will think, whether you need to please someone, how you will calm someone else's anger, and you haven't even gotten out of bed yet. This feels normal because it has always been this way. But normal and healthy are not the same thing. Doing the same thing for a long time does not make it right. Now, there is a different person in front of you. You know them, maybe closely, maybe from a distance, but you have noticed something about them. They don't change under pressure. They don't raise their voice in difficult moments. When something is said to them, they don't go on the defensive. They don't act cornered. And you can't help but wonder inside, how do they do that? The answer is this: that person learned something different from the mirror. They don't look into the outside mirror. They look into the inside mirror. And the inside mirror, that truly internalized, settled sense of, I know who I am, doesn't distort. Because it feeds from its own reality, it doesn't need to rely on what others say about it. This sounds abstract, but its concrete equivalent is very simple. That person doesn't wobble when criticized because they have already faced that criticism within themselves. That person doesn't react when someone tries to belittle them because that sentence doesn't define who they are. People don't attack randomly when they attack. This is a very important thing, and very few people notice it. Behind every attack, there is a fear. Beneath every provocation lies a deficiency. Someone who manipulates fears losing control. Someone who tries to belittle you fears being compared. Someone who constantly gossips fears being excluded. Someone who tries to make you look weak in public fears their own insignificance. When you see this, something changes. The attack no longer looks like an attack. It begins to look like a cry. I am here too. I matter too. See me too. This doesn't mean you are obligated to forgive them, but their map becomes visible, and the person who sees the map doesn't blindly walk into walls. Let's come to a scene. There are people in a meeting, among them someone who doesn't particularly like you. They can't say it, of course, but you sense it from their behavior. They question what you say just a little too much. They hold back your successes just a little when delivering them. They sometimes forget your name, but never forget anyone else's. And what do? Most likely you notice, but you don't do anything, because you tell yourself, I have nothing concrete. You think, maybe I'm exaggerating, and you say, if I do something, it will only get worse. Read those 3 sentences again. 1 is working in that person's favor. 2 is invalidating your own perceptions. And 3 is justifying inaction. All 3 together keep you in place, and that person continues doing wrong. So what is to be done? Not to change, not to show that anything has changed, but to change everything on the inside. You are now aware of the game. You don't show that you're aware. You observe who looks where and when, who uses which opportunity against whom, where each person's power rests, where each person's fear is hidden. You know all of it. This is a map. Maps built with patience are far more valuable than blows struck in haste. Not reacting doesn't mean enduring everything. There are those who confuse the two. They learn to stay silent, learn to observe, but forget that at some point a line must be drawn. Or they fall into the false belief that a strong person doesn't feel anger. No, a strong person feels anger, feels disappointment, feels pain, but they use those feelings at the right time, in the way they choose. Those feelings don't use them. At some point, there needs to be a consequence. At some point, someone needs to understand that this boundary has a cost. This doesn't happen through shouting. It certainly doesn't happen through threats. When you show your cards too early, the other side prepares. They hide things deeper. they act more intelligently. It happens silently. Access is cut, support is withdrawn, opportunity flows in other directions. It is not announced, not explained. It simply happens, and one day the other side notices, but they cannot even trace when it began. This is cold, but not everything cold is cruel. Now pause, because everything I've described so far faces outward. But there is also an inward-facing side to this. You have played that game too, probably more than once. You understood exactly what someone wanted: reaction, approval, crisis, energy, and you gave it anyway. You noticed, but you engaged, because a part of you was waiting, the part that wants to be understood, the part that wants to be seen, the part that wants to be proven right. In that moment, you gave that person your power, without consciously giving it, but you gave it, recognizing this is not anger or shame, it is understanding. Why did you give it? Where does that part feed from? What lack was that approval filling? The answers to those questions are far more valuable than any person on the outside. Let's talk about the root of the need for approval. Nobody says, "I am approval dependent," because it doesn't feel that way. What it feels like is, I just want to be understood. I just want to be seen. I just want them to acknowledge that I was wronged. These are familiar feelings, real needs. Human beings need connection. They need to be seen. The problem is not in these needs themselves. The problem begins when these needs are sought from the wrong place. Seeking approval from someone who is trying to belittle you, this doesn't meet that need. On the contrary, it sends that person the message, "This is working, keep going." And the cycle continues. The way out is to break the cycle, and breaking the cycle requires this: recognize that need, but meet it from within rather than from outside. Now a disagreement is ended, let's say. Maybe hours ago, maybe last night. The other person left or you left. The room is silent, but your head is not silent. You are still talking to them. In your mind, you are saying the things you didn't say. What you couldn't say in that moment, you are now saying with perfect words. You are proving your righteousness. You are winning, but not in real life, only inside your head. And tonight, you cannot sleep, because that conversation doesn't end. Who are you trying to convince in that inner conversation? The other person? No, they aren't there. They are most likely living without a second thought. Then who are you convincing? Yourself. That inner conversation is actually looking inward, not outward. You are trying to convince yourself that I was right, and you are not entirely sure, because somewhere there is a small voice. What if I was wrong too? And that voice wants to be silenced. The inner conversation repeated over and over is actually to suppress that voice. But suppressing is not silencing. What is suppressed comes back, in different forms, at different times. Sometimes it erupts as unexpected anger, as an unexpected breakdown. The way out is not to suppress that voice, it is to sit with it. Well, were they right? Was there a part of what they said that was true? Asking that, and looking at that question honestly. Most of the time you find this, you have a point, and there is also a small spark of truth in what the other person said. Not everything is black or white, and seeing this is not weakness, quite the opposite. Because being able to see the truth and still move forward without harming yourself is something only strong people can do. But sometimes that inner voice is completely wrong. Sometimes you genuinely are treated unjustly. And then what do? Most people see two options, either try to prove it or bury it inside. The third option is this: let it go. Letting go is not forgiving. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go means this: I am not allowing this event to keep taking my energy, my time, my sleep. It happened. I noted it. And now I move on. This decision is greatly underestimated. When people are told let it go, they say, easy for you to say. But letting go is actually an active choice, a choice made anew every day. Saying, this thought is coming, I see it and I allow it to pass. And the more we do it, the easier it becomes. Now let's look more deeply at how people attack. Because there is something we constantly overlook. The people who wear you down are not always bad people. This is a very important distinction. Because when you get stuck on the question, is this person bad? The answer is never clear. They're actually a good person, you say. Their intentions aren't bad, you say. I also play a part in this dynamic, you say. All of these may be true, and yet the fact that that relationship wears you down doesn't change. Someone having good intentions doesn't mean the relationship is healthy. Someone loving you doesn't mean that relationship is good for you. And when you see this distinction, a freedom opens up. You no longer waste time on the question, are they bad or good? You ask, is this relationship growing me or shrinking me? This question is far more honest, and its answer is far clearer. Someone is trying to belittle you in front of everyone. In a meeting, in a group conversation, never directly. A sharp sentence thrown in disguise as a joke. The room smiles, everyone is watching. What does the old reflex say? Respond. Defend yourself. Show them who you are. What does the new voice say? Wait. And you wait. Silence begins to accumulate. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The room waits. The attacker waits. Everyone waits. And in that silence, something happens. Eyes start turning toward them. Because when you don't respond, the stage belongs to them. Their aggression now stands alone. Just them and the arrow they threw. And the arrow hangs in the air. Sometimes when they realize this, they continue. They push harder. Because they must draw out your reaction. Without your reaction, what they did has no meaning. You are still silent. Eventually, someone laughs. But not at you, at the awkwardness of the situation. And by now the room has shifted. The attacker has moved to a defensive position. No one announced it, but everyone felt it. Sometimes silence is not enough. Sometimes words need to be spoken. But how you say something is far more decisive than what you say. Step out of the language of defense. The language of defense speaks like this. I didn't say that. You're misunderstanding. That wasn't my intention. All of these say the same thing. You have been authorized to judge me, and I am obligated to give you an account. There is another language, one that spends far fewer words. Interesting perception. And you go silent. I'm surprised you interpreted it that way. And you continue. Why is this question so important to you? And you wait. These sentences are not defense, they are reframing. While they're trying to judge you, you are examining their motivation. Most people don't analyze this shift in position, but everyone feels it. And there is also this. Sometimes the most powerful move is to accept, but how you accept determines everything. If someone says to you, there are errors in this report, you're incompetent. Defense. I'm not incompetent. The data was already wrong. Power move. You're right. There are errors in the report. I'll fix it. What did you do? You accepted the error but never took the "you're incompetent" part. You acted as if it didn't exist, because not taking it is also a response. Not showing that you're hurt means you didn't take that accusation seriously. And a truly secure person can easily accept a small mistake, because that mistake doesn't define who they are. When you show people you are wounded, they target the same spot next time and begin to dig deeper into that wound. But when you don't show it, they can't know where to strike. Now let's get to the heaviest part. There are moments in your life where none of this feels like enough. Someone isn't just putting you in a difficult position. Someone is genuinely causing damage to your reputation, to your opportunities, to your relationships, quietly, systematically. And at that point, there is a decision. Most people either explode or swallow it. Both are wrong. The person who explodes exposes themselves. They think, I look strong. But everyone sees it. This person has a button. Just press it. The person who swallows it will one day reach a point where they can no longer carry that accumulation. They either fall apart or they explode at the worst moment in the worst way. They take out the cost of years of patience on the person closest to them. The third path. Quietly, systematically, in kind. Cut off access, strengthen alliances. You must build a position such that their attacks gradually begin to turn back on themselves. Because as you rise, the arrows they shoot begin to look increasingly smaller. And more people begin to notice who was what. This is not dramatic. It is not announced. It is simply done. And while it is being done, you carry on as if nothing happened. The person who is actually strong carries no such need. They don't have to prove they are in the room. They don't have to prove they are right. Because their own reality doesn't depend on others' approval or disapproval. Because there are genuinely bigger things ahead for you. Every reaction you give people teaches them something. Every defense, you can press here. Every explanation, I need your approval. Every unnecessary apology. I live according to your standards. You say none of these consciously. But that is the message, and people are collecting it. Over time, the sum of those messages becomes a map showing how to steer you. But they didn't write that map. You did. Through your reactions, your defenses, and your unnecessary explanations. When you stop reacting, the map becomes obsolete. They try the old routes, but they no longer work. And after a while, most people withdraw from those routes, because walking a road that leads nowhere is exhausting for everyone. What I've described so far has mostly focused on those moments of reaction, moments of conflict. But there is something that lives far outside those moments, in a much quieter place. Small decisions, every day, every hour. You wanted to speak in a meeting, but you stayed silent. You wanted to say no to something, but you said yes. You wanted to defend something, but you stayed silent. Or the opposite, it was better not to speak, but you spoke. These don't look significant. Nobody notices. Sometimes you don't even notice yourself. But the sum of those small decisions determines who you are. Not in the big moments, in the daily, ordinary moments no one notices. And it is very important to know this: those small decisions can be changed, not all at once, not through a dramatic transformation, but one each day a little more consciously. Nobody talks enough about the difference between appearing strong and actually being strong. The person who appears strong feels compelled to be dominant in every situation. They want to leave a mark every time they enter a room. They fear that staying silent will make them look weak. The first does it by choosing. The second does it by being forced. The first is free. The second is trapped. And looking from the outside, the two sometimes look the same. Both use silence. Both may be unable to react, but the feeling it produces is completely different. And the person across from you feels that difference, always. Now I want to talk about a very specific moment. That moment, when someone says something and a storm breaks out inside you, but nobody on the outside notices. You look calm, you continue. But inside that storm is turning. What do most people do with that storm? Either they bury it, it'll pass, they say, or in the evening they pour it out to someone. I can't believe what they said, they tell them. Neither is a way out. Burying creates accumulation. Pouring out is temporary relief, but the storm doesn't dissolve. It only gets postponed, and the next time a similar situation arises, the same storm returns with the same force. The real way out is this: by looking inside that storm. What do you feel exactly? Anger. What lies beneath it? Disappointment? Beneath that? Perhaps there was an expectation that went unmet. Perhaps there was a need that went unseen. Seeing these layers doesn't immediately calm the storm, but understanding what creates the storm helps you be more prepared the next time, and being prepared enables you to act by choice. Let's talk about reputation, because this too is one of the misunderstood things. Reputation is not what you say about yourself. It is what others observe under pressure. Someone pushes you, you don't shake, it gets recorded. Someone provokes you, you don't react, it gets recorded. Someone tries to corner you, you smile and move on, it gets recorded. Nobody is taking notes, but everyone is collecting. And over time, a picture emerges. This person doesn't shake. Playing games with this person might mean losing. Once that perception forms, the majority of the test ends before it even takes place, because people unconsciously calculate risk. If the cost of provoking looks high, most people won't try. This is how reputation is built, not with words, with consistent behavior, and over time. This too is one of the misused things. Reactions given in haste are always incomplete. Things said in anger rarely hit their target precisely. But expected responses, those that come days later, even weeks later, are far sharper, supported by information and effective through their coldness. Reckoning is delivered loudly. The result arrives quietly. And the result that arrives quietly is remembered the longest. Now I want to ask you something. You don't need to answer, but somewhere, silently, honestly, think. Who in your life are you doing things for right now, or not doing things you want to do? Whose approval are you explaining yourself for when you don't need to explain? Whose reaction are you staying silent for when you should be speaking? The answers to these questions reveal the real power map of your life. Who are you giving power to? Why? Since when? And did you choose this, or did it happen gradually over time? Seeing this map is uncomfortable, but it is something that needs to be seen. Because until you see it, you keep living according to that map. Now, let's get to the darkest point. And I don't want to skip over this because most content stops right here. Some people know this philosophy, and they learn to stay silent. They learn to observe. They learn not to react. And then they do this. They use these tools to control people, acting cold, keeping their distance, using power for the sake of power. This is a corruption, and it needs to be recognized, because nothing I have described here is for manipulating people. These are tools of protection, tools of self-knowledge, tools of not allowing others to shape you. When power is used to diminish others, it stops being power. It becomes a burden, and that burden crushes the person carrying it most of all. There is one thing on this journey that is the hardest of all: consistency. Staying silent once is easy. Not reacting once is also possible. But every day, in every situation, even when you are tired and feeling low, staying consistent. And this needs to be known. When you are tired, your defenses drop. This is not a weakness, it is a biological fact. Knowing this means being more careful when you're tired. It means not leaving risky conversations for those moments. It means making important decisions when you are full. This is self-knowledge, not an abstract philosophy, a practical, daily, concrete work. The brain opens new pathways. Each time it becomes a little more automatic. At first, conscious effort is required. Over time, that effort decreases, like muscles. Heavy the first week. By the 6th month, the same weight feels much lighter. One day you look back. You think about that meeting, that dinner, that disagreement, and you say, "How could I have been so affected?" You are genuinely surprised how much space those moments took up inside the you of that time. Now the same kind of thing happens, and it passes. It passes somewhere in the course of the day. By evening, you don't even remember it. This is not indifference. This is a change of scale. You have grown, and things that once looked large look small from your new height. This is growth. Silent, invisible, but entirely real growth. Now, go back to that morning mirror. The same person, the same face, but the eyes looking back are different. You no longer ask yourself, "What will they think today?" Now you ask, "What will I choose today?" This looks like a small shift, but it changes your entire life. Because at the center of that question is a different person. Not fed from the outside, fed from within, not dependent on others' approval, trusting their own reality. That person was always there. They were always you, simply forgotten from time to time. The mirror is still there. It will be there every morning, and every morning the same question. When you look at that person, what do you see? Someone shaped by the expectations of others, or someone standing on their own choices? This question doesn't lead to a destination. It points a direction, and that direction is sometimes more important than the destination itself. If this video made you pause, even for just 1 second, that feeling isn't lying to you. There's no motivation on this channel, no applause, just the kind of truths most people don't want to hear, but somewhere deep down, already know. I make every video with one single purpose: to bring you one step closer to a stronger version of yourself. If you want to keep walking that road, subscribe, not for me, for the version of yourself you haven't met yet. I'll see you in the next one.